welcome to the first press conference for the June General Assembly for the U.S. Bishops. My name is Chieko Noguchi, and I'm the Director of Public Affairs for the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. Thank you for your patience as we ironed out a couple of tech issues. The bishops are meeting again in virtual format in light of the challenges to an in-person gathering because of the ongoing COVID pandemic. So our press conference looks a little different, both to accommodate the logistics of our bishop panelists connecting from different locations and to ensure that we're taking proper distancing measures. The host of today's press conference is Bishop Michael Burbidge of the Diocese of Arlington. Bishop Burbidge is the chairman of the USCCB's Committee on Communications, and His Excellency is joining us from his chancery in Arlington. Bishop Burbidge, thank you very much for your work in leading the Committee on Communications. I'd like to hand it over to you for the introduction of our panelists.
Thank you very much, Chieko, and thank you, members of the media, for joining us here today. For the second time in USCCB's history, we find ourselves meeting in a virtual format as we deal with the challenges of in-person gathering because of the COVID pandemic. We have 9 action items on the agenda for our June meeting this year, and there has been some discussion already with our brother bishops. I'm pleased today to be joined by 2 of my brother bishops this afternoon to talk about the plenary session and what we can expect over the duration of our meeting. Archbishop Jose Gomez, Archbishop of Los Angeles, is president of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. We heard from Archbishop Gomez today in his presidential address, in which he stressed themes of unity, encounter, dialogue, and healing. And we are grateful for his remarks and for leading the bishops in our discussion on some very important topics this week. I'm also joined by Bishop Kevin Rhodes of the Diocese of Fort Wayne South Bend, who is chairman of the USCCB's Committee on Doctrine. The bishops are discussing the potential drafting of a document on the Eucharist this week. And if it moves forward, the drafting of such document would fall to Bishop Rhodes' committee. Thank you, Archbishop Gomez. Thank you, Bishop Rhodes, for your availability today. Before we begin to take any questions, I would like to offer Archbishop Gomez and Bishop Rhodes an opportunity to make any brief opening remarks. And from there, I will hand the meeting back to Chieko.
Thank you, Bishop Burbidge. I just want to thank all the journalists for joining us today. It is wonderful that we can be together and talk to you on this important meeting of the Conference of Bishops. I just want to say that the General Assemblies of the Bishops, it's a great opportunity for us to spend time together. Obviously, this year is different, as Bishop Burbidge said, because the fact that we are in a virtual gathering, but still it's a good moment to listen to one another and to learning from one another, to pray together, and continue to find a way to be really united in the conference and also united with Pope Francis. I think the presentation of the Apostolic Nuncio, Archbishop Pierre, was a great blessing, and just to hear his advice and his presentation about the importance of following the teachings of Pope Francis. I think it's good also, as Bishop Burbidge said, besides those documents on the Eucharist, there are several other documents that we are working on. The statement on Native Americans and Alaska Natives. There is a couple of documents for the Family Life and Marriage Committee on precisely on that, on marriage and family life, and also on youth and young adults. And there is also we have had a really good conversation on the immigration issue. We had a very interesting meeting a couple of weeks ago with bishops from Mexico, Central America, and the United States to talk about the issue of immigration and the situation that we have right now. So this assembly is just a wonderful time that we can be together and talk about these issues for the good of the people of God in the United States. Thank you.
Thank you, Archbishop. Bishop Rhodes.
Thank you, Bishop Burbidge, Archbishop Gomez, and all the reporters. I think many are aware that the Committee on Doctrine, which I chair, is preparing an action item to seek approval for a document on the Eucharist. And last November, the U.S. bishops passed a 3-year strategic plan entitled Created Anew by the Body and Blood of Christ, Source of Our Healing and Hope. This would be part of that. The Eucharist is central to the life of Catholics. We consider it the source and summit of Christian life. So hopefully, if the bishops tomorrow give us approval to move forward to prepare a document, we would be able to stress in this document the importance of the Holy Eucharist in our lives and a deeper understanding of the beauty and mystery of the Eucharist. And that's our hope. So we'll wait to see what the results of that vote will be tomorrow, but I am optimistic and hopeful that this will also be an opportunity to come together in unity, because for us, the Eucharist is a sacrament of unity.
Thank you, Bishop Rhodes. Chieko, can I hand the meeting back to you so you can field the questions, and maybe just a brief word about that process?
Yes, thank you, Your Excellency. We'll open the floor to questions from members of the media. We have about 40 journalists who have registered to participate in this press conference today. We'll try to get to as many as we can in the limited time that we have. To ask a question, I would ask that you use the private chat feature on your screen and indicate to us that you would like to ask a question. And when you're called on, please unmute yourself and disclose the name of the bishop whom you wish to address and ask your question. And please make sure that the volume level on your microphone is turned up on your device. I believe I have a request. Let's see. First question goes to Mark Pattison from CNS.
This message is for Archbishop Gomez. I would like to hear your particular takeaways from what Archbishop Pierre had to say to the body of bishops. It seemed that even though he didn't address the issue of the Eucharist document, one could easily read a lot of things that he said into how the bishop should proceed with their deliberations. Archbishop?
Yeah, I think we are just, you're right. I mean, Archbishop Pierre gave us a good path to follow in or not just on that issue, for all our discussions in the conference, and especially following the direction of Pope Francis on Fratelli Tutti. That's a wonderful document that Holy Father has published. So I think in that sense, it was very useful to hear his presentation, and I'm sure that we in the conference are trying to follow that. Specifically on the document on the Eucharist, maybe Bishop Rhodes can say something about related to what your question is all about.
Yes, when Archbishop Pierre spoke about dialogue, and I think that's a very important point. And one of the things with the not only the virtual meeting, but that we're having now, but even between now and the preparation of, or the presentation of a draft of the document in November, I would be hopeful that there'll be opportunities for dialogue. For example, several other committees we intend to talk to share ideas with, to receive their input. So I think that emphasis on dialogue is helpful. At the same time, Archbishop Pierre said you can't dialogue like forever. You have to come to some kind of consensus, and we should do it in the atmosphere of prayerful discernment as brothers. And I think that was a very helpful thing.
Thank you.
Okay. The next question goes to Frank Roca from the Wall Street Journal.
Yes, thank you. For Bishop Rhodes, please, Your Excellency, you said when you were talking about the document and the debate that was going on, you said we are no longer proposing a national policy. That idea of a national policy was in the original proposal to the Administrative Committee, You said, in light of Cardinal Ladaria's letter, we are not intending to propose any kind of national norms. So I just wanted to be clear, what is it that you would have done or that you were proposing to do that you are no longer going to do because of the Vatican's intervention? And then also then separately, how will you maybe address the practical question that everybody's talking about, which is what bishops do and when they should do it, if you see what I mean. Thanks.
It's a very good question. Back in March, when I made the proposal to the administrative committee of the USCCB, really it was a broader document. It would present church teaching on the Eucharist, its centrality in the life of the church, and the importance of Eucharistic consistency or Eucharistic coherence. At that point, we mentioned including a proposed national policy for applying canons 915 and 916, based on the theology and doctrine behind those canons. Now, by national policy, we meant more or less national guidance on applying those canons. We weren't talking about creating norms, but kind of giving guidance that to the bishops. In light of the letter from Cardinal Ladaria and several of the points he made, it seemed that they were thinking more of national policy as norms. So Cardinal Ladaria was saying we had to do a lot of steps to before we would issue norms, but that was never our intention. As a matter of fact, the whole idea of a national policy didn't come from the Committee on Doctrine. It came from the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith during our ad limina visits, because they saw differences of opinion among bishops regarding, who should receive Holy Communion. So that's really where we got that idea from. But when Cardinal Ladaria sent the letter, and what he said in his letter led us to think, well, we don't really want to, we really don't have the competence or the authority to be creating norms. We didn't have that idea. So, but what we do intend to do, and this is really what was central from the very beginning, is look at the doctrine and theology behind the discipline of the church. And that's what we still intend to do. The importance of Eucharistic coherence or Eucharistic consistency. And I think that can still be helpful to bishops in applying canons 915 and 916.
So it could still be guidance, exhortation, sort of, if you see that these principles are violated, you should do this. That could be the case. That hasn't been ruled out.
It hasn't been ruled out. Now, what I would say though is, we haven't even begun to work on the document, so I don't want to anticipate too much what would be there. I mean, I need to hear more of what, the bishops say tomorrow, the committee itself and our consultants. And so there'll be a lot of dialogue, a lot of consultation in preparing this document. So I really can't anticipate what the end result will be.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The next question goes to J.D. Flynn from The Pillar.
Thanks. I suppose my question is probably for Bishop Burbidge by default, because he's the chair of the Communications Committee. But, I'm wondering, there was this disagreement between Cardinal Cupich and Archbishop Cordileone about the degree to which Chapter 8 of Amoris Laetitia was kind of integrated into the pastoral framework. And I presume that what he's referencing is the sort of famous footnote 351. Obviously there are probably very broadly divergent points of view on how to interpret that within the conference. Is it reflected in the document? I mean, I haven't read that. Is it reflected in the document? Is it not reflected because of those divergent points of view? I mean, what's sort of the resolution to that question?
Yeah, no, I thought Archbishop Cordileone answered the question quite clearly in saying, yes, absolutely. The theme of accompaniment and walking with people in various different situations they find themselves is part of the document, is part of what is hoped to be accomplished. That, you know, the church is there to be with people at every moment of their lives, even when there is some brokenness. And so I think Archbishop Cordileone answered Cardinal Cupich's question by reassuring him, yes, absolutely. What the Holy Father's main theme is, you know, we don't abandon anyone. We find a way as church to heal and accompany them. That's very much part of the document. And I think that was the response that and concern, I think, was alleviated. But I think Cardinal Cupich made the point that it wasn't specifically using footnotes or anything from chapter 8, but the theme itself was there.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. The next question goes to Jack Jenkins with Religion News Service.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my question, and it's for anybody on the panel. And I just want to get you a chance to kind of address the question of, you know, we're talking about the Eucharistic document of why and why now, right? The idea that there's clearly a subtext here. It came up, Joe Biden's name came up twice during the debate earlier today. And while I'm sure there are many different opinions and viewpoints regarding this issue, there's clearly an undercurrent of conversation happening with regard to denying communion to Catholic politicians who, you know, support abortion rights. But I wanted to, you know, directly address this question of, you know, what is it about this precise moment that calls for an addressing this Eucharistic question? Why not 2 years ago? Why not 5 years ago? Because the idea of politicians not necessarily representing Catholic values isn't exactly new. So I'm just curious, what about this precise moment is inspiring this movement?
I'll maybe answer briefly, give Bishop Rhodes a break there, but hopefully he can follow up. It was not what we'll be saying in this document, this teaching document that Bishop Rhodes will present on tomorrow, isn't anything brand new. It's what the church has always taught in the Eucharist. In fact, I remember hearing in preliminary discussions, you know, there are previous documents, even today, you know, references to some were made, but it, you know, dust them off a little bit, and, you know, present them in a refreshing and new way at this moment in time, especially where there is a concern about the Catholics' belief in the understanding of the real presence of the body and blood, soul, and divinity of Christ being truly and really and substantially contained in the Eucharist. A sense of Eucharistic wonder and awe that in many ways may need to be revitalized, relifted. So I think every moment in time has its history. The worthy, you know, making ourselves, having the right disposition and worthiness to present ourselves to receive this precious gift has always been part of church teaching. But at every moment in history, the circumstances themselves will change. Bishop Rhodes, maybe you could add to that.
I agree with Bishop Burbidge. We have talked in years past about Catholics in political life and the you know, the importance of adherence to church teaching. We've did a document on worthiness to receive Holy Communion back in, I think it was 2006.
Yeah.
But with this new strategic plan that's going to be focused on the Eucharist, this 3-year plan that we have, we need to teach this again. I think on different levels, there's a convergence of things that have happened. One is the poll that showed a decline in Catholics' belief in the real presence in the Eucharist that Bishop Burbidge was saying. So we want to reinforce and help to reignite that faith, or to help to catechize people better on the truth about the Eucharist. But it has to be the whole truth. So it's our faith in the Eucharist, but also the important call to live the Eucharist. And that's where Eucharistic consistency comes in. I mean, we want to talk about the whole truth about the Eucharist, and how can you do so without talking about the importance of living what we receive and being in communion with the faith of the church. That's Eucharistic consistency. So I think we can't do a full treatment of the Eucharist without talking about that. or teaching about that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. The next question goes to Matt Hadro from Catholic News Agency.
Hi, yes, good afternoon. My question is for Bishop Rhodes. In the proposed outline for the draft statement on the Eucharist, it cites Pope Benedict's Sacramentum Caritatis. Would you be able to explain a little bit the reasoning behind this, and if the document, if approved and drafted, how it might implement Sacramentum Caritatis?
It's a good question, because I think that's where the term. Oh, that's better. Okay. The term Eucharistic consistency, that specific term, came from the Synod on the Eucharist back in 2005, and was used by Pope Benedict in his apostolic exhortation, Sacramentum Caritatis, Sacrament of Charity. And he said in there that worship that's pleasing to God can never be a purely private matter without consequences for our relationships with others. It demands a public witness to our faith. That is so important. And this is important for every Catholic, not just Catholic politicians. Although Pope Benedict in that document said that it was especially incumbent upon those in positions of leadership, you know, political or social leadership. And that means respect for human life and upholding the values of our faith. So this is a grave responsibility for Catholic leaders. And it's a matter of being consistent with living a Eucharistic life, living and doing so by publicly witnessing to the faith. So that's where the term came from, was from Pope Benedict. Now, it was also used in Aparecida, the conference of all the bishops of Latin America, and Pope Francis at the time was Cardinal Bergoglio. He was the president of that assembly, and they used the term Eucharistic coherence or Eucharistic coherency as well. And they also called upon leaders in government, et cetera, who are Catholic to bear witness to the faith and be coherent with the faith. So it isn't new, but this is a very important message. And it's not focused on just President Biden. I mean, this is for all Catholics, and, you know, and we're all called to be, to live the Eucharist that we receive and to live in communion with the teachings of the Church.
Thank you, Matt.
Okay. The next question goes to Mark Kellner with the Washington Times.
Yes, and my question is for Bishop Rhodes. Your Excellency, what would you say to Catholics who were expecting out of this meeting a statement that did address qualifications to receive the Eucharist? You said that wasn't part of the plan, but people got that impression somewhere. In fact, you said you were going to address it initially in the planning stages. So what do you say to those who are now a little disappointed by what was expressed today?
Well, to be honest, this was never going to be decided today. It was always going to be this coming November, because all we were requesting today of the other bishops was permission to go forward to write the document. And I don't know how the message got out there that we were going to be making decisions about the content of the document today when we don't even have a draft prepared yet. So that was never the intention. I'm not quite sure how that idea got out there. But even back in March, when this was approved to go on the agenda for now, it was only going on the agenda as a request to prepare a draft for the US bishops. And that's what the Committee on Doctrine does. It's not going to be our document. We prepare it, but it has to be approved by the other bishops. It would need a 2/3 majority. They can make amendments, et cetera. It's our normal process for producing a statement of the whole Conference of Bishops.
I think that's a key point that Bishop Rhodes is making. At this June assembly, what the bishops are seeing tomorrow is merely an outline. And with the vote to go forward with it, then that full process of discussion and amendments, and all the bishops will have plenty of time to weigh in on that. So thank you, Bishop, for that clarification.
Sure.
Okay. And I'm sorry, we are running short on time. The last question goes to Dennis Sadowski from Catholic News Service. Okay. I think perhaps we're having a little trouble. And I think we had one more come in. Let's see, Enrique Soros from Ceylon.
Yes, Latin American Bishops Council and Schoenstatt Communicators. I want to say I am contributing with Bishop Cousins with the Eucharistic Revival, and I am a consultant at the Committee of Laity. My question is, this is so important, the Eucharistic Revival. My question, when I see what in the world is happening and the church is losing 6 millennials out of 1 that comes to the church, shouldn't be investing this whole time looking for what are we doing to get this youth back, and not only to get them back, but to see what's going on in the United States and to get more youth and more families in the spirit of Fratelli Tutti. So building bridges, looking what unites us with the world like Pope Francis is doing. So this is my question. Yeah.
Thank you, Enrique. I think if you, the address by the Apostolic Nuncio today and by Archbishop Gomez, I think both very clearly reminded all of us of that beautiful call that we are bishops, that we are pastors, and that we are to be reaching out and finding new ways, to help our young people and people of all ages. And it was very important, I think, what Archbishop Gomez said in the beginning, that this assembly that we have this week, there's lots of work to do. It's not just the document that Bishop Rhodes is presenting on. We heard a beautiful presentation by Archbishop Cordileone on the pastoral framework for marriage and family life ministry in the United States, which is probably addressing many of the issues that you just talked about. We'll be talking about the immigration issue. So there's a great deal of work as pastors that we have to do and to respond to the pastoral and spiritual needs that you highlighted. So this meeting is much more than about one particular document. So thank you for highlighting the work we're doing.
One thing, I missed one word, synodality. Because in October, it starts the synodality at the diocesan level, and most of the Catholics don't know about this.
Right.
Diocesan, regional, continental, then the whole church 2023. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Bishop Rhodes or Archbishop Gomez, if you would like to add anything.
First of all, on the youth ministry, is obviously a goal for all of us to do what Enrique is suggesting. So, and there is also, as in the same way that we are approving the possibility of approving a document on the Eucharist, we are also going through the process of a national pastoral framework on youth and young adults. So we are preparing for that. And then, so we are very concerned, as Enrique is saying, about the young people and the young adults. So we are really working on that. And then on the other issue, synodality, obviously, we are in close communication with the Holy See, and the bishops of the United States will start working on the synodality issue, preparing for the next synod in 2023. So we're working on that too.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm sorry we were not able to get to all the questions today. Thank you, Your Excellencies, for your time this afternoon. I know it's been a very long day for all of you. Thank you also to the ladies and gentlemen of the press for your participation in this press briefing. Please go to usccb.org tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for the live stream of Day 2 of the Bishop's June Assembly, followed by a press conference at the end of the day. If members of the media have any additional questions, as always, please reach out to the Public Affairs Office for assistance. My team and I will be happy to assist you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you.
This evening.